All right, thanks for joining us again, everyone. President Muhammadu Buhari has relieved 2 ministers of their appointments. They are the Ministers of Agriculture, Mohammed Sabo Nanono, and his power counterpart, Engineer Saleh Maman. Announcing their sack on behalf of the President, a special advisor to the President on media and publicity, Femi Adesina, says the Minister of Environment, Mohammed Abubakar, has been redeployed to the Ministry of Agriculture, while the Minister of State for Works, Engineer Abubakar Aliyu, is to take over as Minister of Power. The presidency says it will soon fill the vacancies in line with constitutional provisions.
Change is the only factor that is constant in every human endeavor, and as this administration approaches its critical phase in the second term, I have found it essential to reinvigorate this cabinet in a manner that will deepen its capacity to consolidate legacy achievements. Accordingly, a few changes marking the beginning of a continuous process have been approved. They are as follows. Ministers leaving the cabinet. 1. Mohammed Sabo Nanono, Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development. And 2. Engineer Saleh Maman, Minister of Power. Redeployment. 1. Dr. Muhammad Mahmoud Abubakar, Minister of Environment, to assume office as the Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development. 2. Engineer Abubakar D. Aliyu, Minister of State, Works and Housing, assumes office as the Minister of Power. In due course, substantive nominations will be made to fill the consequential vacancies in accordance with the requirements of the Constitution.
Well, for more on this, Arise analyst Dr. Sam AMADI joins us in the studio. And from Lagos, we have Dr. Olukayode Oyeleye, a policy analyst and consultant. Gentlemen, glad to have you join us on Arise, on Newsnight, on Arise News. I'll start with you. Of course, Dr. Kayode, when we do have him, he will join us, but I'll start with you. Dr. Sam AMADI, the presidency said he wouldn't want to be identified as a failure before he leaves office. How do you evaluate this action of his vis-a-vis this statement?
Well, clearly, I mean, we have to say that the idea of the presidency having 8 years or 4 years in the first term is that within that period, the president can rejig the cabinet with a view to getting the best. And of course, they have a performance evaluation framework. So we can say on the good side that, look, some people could have said, maybe this could have happened earlier, but better late than never. And of course, the president comes to office with a profile of somebody who doesn't usually sack his members of his cabinet. I mean, he's reluctant to relieve his aides of their job. And so this must be a signal that maybe we're going to see a much more robust engagement. We're going to see a greater focus on performance. So at this point, maybe 2 years and some fractions to the government ending, we are seeing some kind of a new impetus put on the cabinet. And if you look at where this government is coming from, the fact that essentially people can argue with some reasonable evidence that they have not delivered on what they committed to do. They may have got some things right and something not right, but essentially that's a burden. The president says, I don't want to be a failure. He said that a few weeks ago. And so it looks like this is matching words with action, trying to rejig two critical sectors, power and agriculture, in a way. He loves agriculture, and he probably should have a bragging right or establish more accomplishment in that area. Power is central to grow the economy, central to any massive transformation that the president would like. Legacy. So these are two critical areas, and getting the guys off at this point might signal a greater commitment to delivering on those on the promises.
Okay, let me bring in Kayode Oyeleye, who's joining us remotely. We don't have him. Okay, let me stay with Dr. Sam AMADI here. So, well, some people are saying, is this really about the need to, get optimum performance as far as ministers are concerned? Or are there other underlying factors that could have played out? Well, let me quote President, where he says the sack of both ministries or ministers is in line with tradition of subjecting the federal government's projects and program implementation to independent and critical self-review. Is that really what it's about, or there's more to it?
It might not be only the reason. I mean, cabinet position is political, even though it is also supposed to be technical in terms of performing the job. So you get there because either the president cares about you, likes you, or somebody close to the president likes you. You are nominated. And so even if you don't perform, arguably, the president may not relieve you if you still have strong political capital. So two arguments here. If you look at the power ministry, primarily, has not performed. There's weak leadership. He has not grappled with the sector at all. We saw the embed, the back and forth with a key ministerial agency like embed. We've not seen that level of leadership, kind of getting trust from both the consumers. Look at the issues around tariffs.
embed, of course, is the bulk electricity.
We saw the sack and retrench, sack, no sack drama. We also see that he's not been able to lead this sector. You see, the minister's job in the regulated industry is not to do the daily thing, but to lead in the macro sense, drive all the stakeholders, commit investors to more investment, because they can see that the policy articulation is robust, is consistent, and at high level. That is missing. So if you judge the Ministry of Power with the basic rudiments of leadership in that sector, I would say that the present statement around performance evaluation is true. But the point is, even if he scored very low mark in terms of technical assessment benchmarks that we are well known, he could still stay in the job if he has not lost some political traction. So I can argue that, look, this is a combination of both the technical failure as well as perhaps some political shiftings. This is run up to 2023. Some of the cabinet members also have political ambitions, so some are also going to run for election. And again, politics is like a shifting object. So you lose power, you gain power. So a combination of performance-related and maybe some political issues.
All right, Sam. Is this a pointer to more sacks, considering the reason for their sack? Non-performance, he says. He wants to reinvigorate his cabinet and consolidate legacy achievements.
Absolutely. A few days ago, when the president said, I don't want to be a failure, I put out a Facebook post that, Mr. President, if you don't want to be a failure, look at your cabinet, look at your team. You need to sack too many people, and that's true. So I would expect that, look, maybe the president, that statement looks so passionate. The president has been somebody who has looked for this job for like 3 electoral cycles. He has always got his 10-point-something million people, but never get the deal done. And so in 2014, he was able to get extra 4 or so million to add to the 10 and became president. Now, it would be some level of personal tragedy, I would think, or loss, if he moves from high reputation as somebody who could get this country working and ends a 10-year tenure with a very low credibility. So I want to believe that the president sincerely wants to really get something out of this
Can
tenure.
he catch up in 2 years?
And therefore, he needs to probably remove more people than he has
Exactly.
done.
Well, he has said that, it will be a continuous,
parastatals, and as well as staffers in the villa.
He said it will be a continuous exercise. Let's look at the gentleman that he's bringing in from the Minister of Environment is being redeployed to agriculture. Would you say that that really should have been the move, the right move? Is that the right move?
Sure.
Or should fresh people have come in at this stage? I mean, when you consider the fact that, take for example, on the watch of this Minister of Environment, Nigeria is still the open defecation capital of the world.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I mean, two ways to look at it. One is that the president might need to sit back now and think about, obviously, he's going to get 2 more people from the states affected. So maybe he's going to put an eye on who fits the bill. Maybe there could be some change. But again, environment is the closest to agriculture, if you would like, in terms of contiguities. So if you ask me in terms of reshuffling of parastatal, that's a good move. If you look at power, for example, works and housing, the civil work around power, so there's a little bit engineering work. So it might be that the thinking is, whose ministry is adjunct, most proximate to these 2 ministries. So in the meantime, fit in these guys. And of course, the Minister of Works and Housing, Minister of State, is an engineer, although civil engineer, has had extensive experience as a commissioner in state, a deputy governor. So you could say the level of managerial leadership, the level of stakeholder management, one could ultimately assume that he has ramped up experience and knowledge. So I think, but the problem with the power, you see, all the ministers in power have not done very well. Fashola is doing very well in
works and housing.
We didn't do well in power. So power calls for a certain level of adaptive leadership of managing complexity, and complexity and uncertainty and contiguities don't necessarily ask for ordinary political experience. It's not a case of being a former PAMSEC. So the president and his team probably needs to sit back again and look at the power ministry, because really the lack of leadership, even if people like Fashola who came in with strong pedigree, and who is also showing some strength in the field in power, it therefore means that selecting who fits the power bill
is a challenge.
Requires a lot more complex thinking, a lot more benchmark away from the normal benchmark of experience and all that.